What a day it's turning out to be for gaming. On the one hand, you have the government of India, which has banned 54 apps. It happened overnight. It's a story we told you right here on the channel on a Sunday, and including the immensely popular game Free Fire, which has been banned. On the other hand, in the startup capital of the country, Bengaluru, the Karnataka High Court has overturned the state government's ban on e-gaming. However, it has said that it's going to be up to the state to come out with a law which will be, of course, within the confines of the constitution. What a day is turning out to be for gaming, and I'm going to be in conversation now with Rahul Tewari of Games 24/7, as well as Vaibhav Kakkar, well-known lawyer from Saraf Partners. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Rahul, I'll come to you first. Could you have gotten a better Valentine's Day gift?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the gaming sector, it's kind of a hat trick of sorts, right? So we've seen very positive judgments come out of 3 states in quick succession, and I can just talk on behalf of the industry, for the domestic industry, and also on behalf of the gamers, the 400 million gamers in India. This is a great day. It's been a great outcome, and we haven't looked at the copy of the judgment, but the court clearly said that what the government did is unconstitutional and ultra vires to the constitution. So really pleased with the outcome today.
It's a very important point that Rahul has made, that this is not the first time that a High Court has overturned the ban on online gaming. Now, when Karnataka High Court has done it, it has said that its judgment will not stand in the way of legislature bringing in a new law in consonance with the constitution against gaming. Vaibhav, you are the lawyer that we have on the panel. What does all of this mean?
Hi, Nayantara. Pleasure to be here on this interview. First of all, I think congratulations to Rahul. It's a great day, another big feather to the cap of all the gaming industry. I think what today's judgment has done is a reiteration of well-settled constitutional law principles, that if you're offering a platform entailing skill-based gaming, then it is constitutionally protected. And every company would have a right and a fundamental right to undertake such business and trade. You've seen 2 other high courts, namely Tamil Nadu as well as Kerala, come up with similar judgments. What one hopes is that I think state legislatures will take cue from this, Nayantara, and I think take a view that such sort of bans of skill-based, real money skill-based gaming are very much going to be held unconstitutional. It's a question of time. Mind you that similar such challenge is still pending in Andhra Pradesh as well as Telangana. So one needs to see what transpires there. But as someone who's been advising a number of gaming companies in this industry, from day one, our view was that ultimately these bans were not based on sound constitutional principles. And I think, and one really hopes that state governments take cue from these verdicts and start moving away from the direction of banning real money skill-based gaming and look at regulation. And regulation is the way to go. And one hopes that this gives further fillip to that move. But I think one word of caution, of course, Tamil Nadu has already moved to the Supreme Court. And that appeal should be coming up sometime soon. Yeah. But having said that, I think, it will be difficult for the Supreme Court to ignore 3 High Court judgments and based on constitutional law laid down since 1950s. So I think overall the law has always been on the side of the gaming industry. And kudos to, the gaming companies to have dug in their heels and fought through. These are not very easy battles and they've had to really fight a tough and arduous one. So my congratulations to the companies.
So the ball is back in Rahul's court as hit by Vaibhav. So, Rahul, I'll take that with you. Yes, we've seen other high courts do this. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the Supreme Court. We at ET now are not in the business of second-guessing judgments, and let's refrain from doing that. The question is, have you folks at Games 24/7, are you back live in Karnataka? How much of your business did it dent? And did it do anything at all as far as capital goes for the sector?
I think that's a good observation, Nayantara. I think such bans do create short-term disruption to our business. It makes planning for innovation, planning for customer acquisition a little tricky. But I think the industry has almost learned to face these headwinds and with a lot of grit. So we definitely would be back in Karnataka soon. We would go live as soon as there is more clarity, and we will work in terms of making sure that there is more clarity. As Vaibhav was also mentioning, that there is ample legal clarity. What we want is some state government or a set of governments to take some progressive steps towards regulating this entire space. As an industry, we have been self-regulating ourselves through industry associations and bodies, and we have tried to create a very safe environment for the gamers. And we would want the state governments to partner so that there are less such kinds of disruptions for the industry, and there is more clarity for the businesses and for the investors at the same time. I think what we lose the context here is that it is very unnerving for the investors to kind of look at such upheavals that eventually get solved but do create short-term disruptions. So this is, I think, the Karnataka judgment will provide clarity for the investment community at the same time.
I got it. Right. But, so as you all try to create a safe environment, which is not going to be like spiritual opium, the way, China has talked about e-gaming as well. Vaibhav, it has to be said though, right, that whether you looked at the government of India's ban against Chinese apps, including gaming apps, including a Korean one, PUBG, which was banned because it was being published by Tencent, or even today when you've got Free Fire, which is being banned. On the other hand, you've got these state governments which seem to have issues with gaming. There are still more regulatory challenges to go through. Because the point I'm trying to get at is never stopped capital. It hasn't stopped it hasn't stopped those who want to become full-time gamers from being full-time gamers. It hasn't stopped founders from starting startups either, even though you've had disruptions.
No, that's right, Nayantara. You're bang on right. I think the way I look at it is that wherever there is a gray area, that's where the opportunity lies. And some of the entrepreneurs, some of the venture capitalists have really taken the bull by its horn by taking those risks. And those have paid off. And ultimately, those were primarily driven by sound legal advice. And ultimately, constitutional law principles, as I mentioned, which were historically well founded and well supported, have now found validation. Insofar as those Chinese apps that have been banned, I think, Nayantara, that's a separate bucket, the way I view it. I think there's one bucket of real money, skill-based gaming. And I think that particular industry to which Rahul belongs to, I think that industry has been seeing a lot of disruption in terms of legislative changes in different states. And hopefully, as I said, now a direction towards regulation with 3 successive quick victories and states taking cue from it. The second bucket is, of course, these apps that have been banned, which are primarily originating from China. I think, of course, geopolitical tensions and the current India-China relationship definitely has a strong bearing on that. And there are, of course, inherent issues on data mining and data integrity insofar as those apps is concerned, including what we saw happen with TikTok and PUBG and so on and so forth. So I think that's a slightly different sort of origin or a rational-based distinction that is being made. Of course, it's interesting to see, Nayantara, that nobody, even for those 150 apps that got banned historically, has ever taken the government to court. And I don't think government's been put to a place where they've been asked to establish their grounds for having, put that ban in terms of proof that they have on data compromise. And that was, I think, the primary identification of factor that the government had identified. So I think that's a very different play, and I think it's flowing from very different factors, which we understand somewhere as well. But I think real money skill-based gaming and the impact on it. I mean, a lot of these companies are all Indian. Their data anyway resides in India, and they've been raising a lot of growth capital. I think one interesting takeaway, Nayantara, for you and the viewers would also be that this sector has been doing tremendously well despite all the headwinds. And if you look at the balance sheet of some of the major companies, that's a great story to write about. And I dare say that if the kind of 3 successive victories the gaming industry has had, if these victories continue the way they should, and in my personal opinion, they should very much go right up to the Supreme Court in favor of the skill-based gaming companies, because the jurisprudence on which their models are structured is sound. Then I would imagine that in about a year's time, you will actually start seeing real money-based gaming companies looking at capital markets and IPO in the Indian markets. I think that day is not too far now. So, I'm very, very bullish. And pun intended, if I was to put a bet on this, I think applying skill and judgment, I would say definitely the gaming companies have a great deal going.
I mean, I can just add to what Vaibhav just mentioned.
Okay.
Nayantara, I think there's growing realization that, this is a very important sector with a lot of potential. Right? So we have had in the budget, an announcement of a task force, focused on animation and gaming, the AVGC task force, right, which clearly is looking at job creation, it's looking to bring in new investments, and that's all positive for the sector. And before that, we had the Niti Aayog, come up with a report. Very recently, we had the Prime Minister actually talk about the potential of the sector. I mean, he's talking about the sector being as large as 3 lakh crores over the next few years. So the government clearly recognizes that the domestic players will have to play a part here. So I think there is an onslaught of gains from outside India.
Right.
What we want is the domestic companies to also flourish and prosper.
And I think, Nayantara, just to complete the point, I think one challenge will be that ultimately under the constitutional scheme, betting and gambling is a state subject. So what this means is you will continue to see a number of states having a disparate approach to legislation, to prohibition, to regulation. I think the time is ripe for maybe the central government to step in, just like how they did it in the real estate sector when they brought in the RERA model law. And that sort of became the cue for almost every state to implement a similar RERA framework. I think time is ripe for the central government to step in here as well to protect real money skill-based gaming. I think it'll be a huge fillip to the overall sector.
I'm going to go now by a report that was put together by BCG as well as Sequoia Capital, where they actually went on to say that, we have 300 million plus gamers in India. The revenues hit $1.8 billion in 2020 and can hit $5 billion by 2025. You're talking about this market becoming as big as $5 billion in just about, by 2025. Rahul, the question then is that are you guys, whether it's the broadcasters, the publishers, the gamers, the inventors, the developers, all of you together, are you taking this big opportunity? Because so far what we keep hearing about is what? Rummy, chess, bridge, poker, Ludo. No,
I think, the next 5 years are going to be very different, is our belief. I think there's the customer consumption habits in terms of entertainment is changing. I mean, that's the big force that's driving the growth for the industry. And we think that India is the hottest gaming market. And the reason is that the Indian customer is very savvy and they're looking for a variety of different kinds of content. So I think the games that you just mentioned are the games of skill that have monetized very well in India. But the business models are evolving. The diversity of content is increasing. In the last couple of years, driven by the pandemic, it's been unfortunate for the country, but in terms of the digital consumption habits, they have changed dramatically. And we think that the customers are looking and demanding for much more diverse content, and the domestic companies are also investing in it. So you've seen domestic players bring out new games. Some of them have been evergreen skill games like rummy and to a certain extent, there's been a recognition of even poker being a game of skill. We've seen casual games like Ludo do very well, and this is just the start of all the action that we will see over the next few years in terms of diversity of content.
Okay, so Vaibhav has already indicated, right, that everybody should go all in. I'm of course using analogies from the gaming world as well. My final question, and I'll give this one to you, Vaibhav. There is a lot of uncertainty, and it's not just in India. Let's be fair. Your play-to-earn model, that's still not been accepted worldwide. We still haven't even talked about virtual reality, augmented reality, and all of that, which is redefining gaming, esporting, which is becoming a new career. But you also can see that despite the disruption, the market is just so big that you're continuing to see capital flow in. Isn't that what has happened? And then the question is, why aren't we seeing the kind of action on ground the way we should be?
I think, in my personal opinion, and I think Nayantara sort of having advised a number of companies in this sector, including Rahul's company as well, I would say that, we continue to see a lot of action. I think it's simply because of the potential that the sector brings, as well as the depth of this market. And if you look at even the average per user consumption, that's abysmal as a proportion to the kind of disposable income that people use for gaming globally. So I do believe that there's significant potential, and that's why, despite the challenges, in spite of the challenges, more and more capital continues to be raised, because the growth is happening at an incredible pace. And I think that's where the excitement will continue for times to come, not only for founders, for private equity, for venture capital investors. And I think, therefore, the space will continue to grow. And I keep saying this, right? While no investor likes gray areas, but remember, wherever there is a gray area, there's an opportunity. And if you've grown to a particular scale, the kind of upside you get when there is clarity is phenomenal. And I think the gaming industry and the existing incumbents who've really led this battle, who have had to suffer a great degree of pain, will now benefit from having believed in their legal position, which was well-founded and strongly based.
Well, that's Karnataka, the startup capital, Bengaluru, which is in the state, getting a big victory at the Karnataka High Court. It's not the first High Court to overturn a state government's ban on e-gaming. Let's see what now happens in the Supreme Court. With that, I'd like to thank both Rahul and Vaibhav for joining us live today.
Thank you so much, Nayantara.
Thank you.